right. So today, I am proud for many reasons to partner with EdChoice. And that is because they are an organization that doesn't just talk the talk, they do the work. Ladies, aren't you tired of hearing parents don't know how to choose the best education for their kids? It angers me when I hear experts with their PhDs that they say know how to choose education better than we do, and we birthed these little people. We're with them every day through the tantrums, through the nap fights, through the homework. We're the ones in the trenches. Ed Choice believes the best people to make those choices when it comes to education are parents. They work with legislators, train advocates, and research all things education choice related. Moms, it doesn't matter if you live in the urban area or the rural area. I don't care if you homeschool or private school. Ed Choice has information for you. They also don't tell anybody. Get yours first. Have some really cool giveaways at their booth, which is 207. So, inside scoop, because you came and attended, you know when we leave here or when the marketplace opens up, go to 207 and get your goodies. Then tell your other mom friends, okay? Because we know how that goes. Somebody finds out where the good stuff is, and then by the time you get there, it's gone. This is not my first MOMCON, okay? Believe it or not, this month marks 4 years that I've been a MOPS member myself. So our daughter was about your baby's age when I joined MOPS. Our youngest wasn't even thought of yet. So I am also a fellow MOPS member along with you. So with that being said, I'm going to have my guests that are joining me introduce themselves to you. I was not going to stand here and read three bios when I have three very capable, very educated, very smart, and God-fearing women that can do it themselves probably much better than anything I could read. So, Jen, we're going to start with you since you're joining us virtually. Introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your family, and what educational choice you've made for your kiddos.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Jen McDonald. Once upon a time, a long time ago, I taught public high school. I was actually teaching in a charter school that was chartered by a public school system. So I did that for 3 years. I taught French and Spanish there. And then I transitioned and I taught for 2 years in a private Christian school, and I taught middle and elementary grades. So in 5 short years, I taught almost every grade K through 12. So that was a long, crazy ride. And then I started having kids myself, and I was staying at home with them, and I joined MOPS. I'm very sad. This is my first MOMCON I have missed. I've been to the last 6, and I'm very sad not to be there with you all. I know. So my oldest is 10 and my next oldest is 8, and those are my boys. And then I have an almost 6-year-old kindergartner and a 5-month-old baby. And for their entire lives, we've chosen homeschooling for this point in time. And we have been very excited and very amazed and blessed at a beautiful co-op type program that we go to on Mondays. And I'm actually teaching the middle school literature and composition class there currently. So that is in a nutshell, my educational journey.
Thanks, Jen. Next, we will have Nas.
Hi, ladies. I'm really excited to be here. This is my first MomCon. I didn't even know MomCon was a thing until CJ literally was like, yeah, we're going to MomCon. I'm like, what is that? Now I have to come next year. But a little about me. I am a mom of one. I am not a traditional mom. I am a flight attendant, which means I am in and I am out. And I actually started when my son was 5. So he turned 5 in December. So he had to wait a whole year to go to school. So that gave me a little wiggle room to figure out, hey, I wonder what school we're going to send him to. And what was appropriate at the time was a school in his dad's district. So I was like, yeah, we'll try that. But it wasn't really working. So I was like, let me switch him over to the school in my district, and it fit. And then I moved again because it just happens in life. And now COVID happened, and I realized he does not do very well independently with online learning. And I'm sure a lot of us figured that out, that our kids were really stressed. And so now he's back in school and he's doing amazing. For the first couple of years, he was in an IEP because he just had a lot of struggle with focus and things of that nature, and just, having different options of, should we get him evaluated with your doctor? And I was like, yeah, no, we're not doing that because he's capable. But just the knowing that there are options out there is great. But just being a non-traditional mom and also running a nonprofit of my own right now for flight attendants mental health is definitely taking a lot of time. But just knowing that there are options for your kids, even though I only have one, makes it a lot better. So I'm really excited to be here and converse with everyone. So thanks, CJ.
And what is your nonprofit called?
It is called Therapy Incorporated. It is a mental health movement that I started within the flight attendant industry to focus on our mental health and emotional well-being. I'm sure you guys have seen this nonprofit was very timely right now. So definitely keep it in your thoughts. And as you travel back home, give your flight attendants some love. They need it.
And last but certainly not least, we have one of our very own MOPS International staff members, Jacqueline.
Thank you guys so much for coming today. I'm super passionate about this issue. I'm excited that you guys are all here and that you care about these things. I've been working on MOPS International for 2 years. I'm on the marketing team. I do project management. So I always say I have no skills. I just get to boss people around. The people who can do all the things, I just tell them when and where. So that's kind of what I do at MOPS. And here I just run around and make sure everyone has coffee and is happy with candy at registration. If you saw me with the candy bowl. Oh, I got a whole bunch in the back. I'll remember. I have 4 kids, and I had 4 kids, 5 and under, when I was in MOPS. And we started our journey with homeschooling. So I actually only got to do the first MOPS with my first 2 because they aged out, but they were home with me. So then I couldn't continue. So, but then I came back around to work for MOPS. But we've done almost everything as far as education goes. We started off homeschooling. I had so many little ones. I had a ton of grace for myself, and my only goal was to get them to read and do math up to 3rd grade. We just kind of let the history and science and all that stuff happen through video or playing in the dirt or whatever. I'd be like, see how you're sick? That's because and then once we had moved across the country to Colorado. They had some more options, so I was able to join a weekly co-op that the state actually offers, and they're kind of all over the city. And then we joined a more traditional homeschooling community there, and I taught there. And then now I have 3 girls in high school. My oldest is full-time because she's a senior and she really wants to walk across the state and do all the things. So she had to be full-time to do that, so she does that. My younger 2, sophomore and freshman, they stay home. We do a university program online in the morning for their core classes. In the afternoon, we send them to school for public school and sports. And then my son is in 7th grade, and he does a 2-day-a-week university style, is what it's called, university model. So he goes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, he gets all his instruction, and then Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, he's home and he just does the homework. So I don't have to teach anybody anymore. Not that I ever actually did, because there is no shame in having kids with excellent character who cannot spell for anything. It's okay. We got autocorrect for that. So, and yeah, I can't spell anyway. And I went to public school my whole life. So yeah, we've kind of done it all, everything actually except private school. But yeah, that's kind of our story.
So we're going to dive right into the podcast section. And ladies, we will have some Q&A at the end. So please write down your questions as they come up, because if you're anything like me, if I don't write it down while I think about it, we will get to the Q&A section and I will not remember what my question was. Dumb questions. There are no silly questions, whatever comes to your mind that you have a question about that comes up, please ask it because I guarantee you there is somebody else out there that has the same question. So let's start with something. Ladies, and whoever out of you wants to answer first, just go for it. If you were president for the day, what one barrier to quality education would you write an executive order to get rid of?
Can you repeat that?
If you were president for the day, what one barrier to quality education would an executive order to get rid of?
I'll answer first.
Our international,
Financially, that is such a humongous barrier in education. I remember just my parents couldn't even afford to pay for books for goodness sake. It was a struggle because just I just got my son's bill and it was like $180. And I'm like, what kind of books are these? Like, can I buy them instead versus you give them to him? So I would definitely write a financial plan or something to make it affordable for parents to afford these things. Because if you do, I think the free lunch or something voucher,
free
they'll
reduced
pay
lunch.
for it, but a lot of us are not on that financial scale, so we can't afford it. So that will be my biggest, I guess, proclamation. Yes.
So for me, mine is probably a more comprehensive plan. I'm starting with maternity leave. I'm starting from conception. Soon as a woman finds out that she's pregnant, you get a
Yes.
handicap sticker. You get a night nurse for a year,
Yes.
and you get a paid date night every month.
Yes.
Then once they're preschool age, free universal preschool, free universal preschool. Any preschool you want, just get on the waiting list, get in line, fill out your application. Then from there, we would have a scholarship income-based program for education for K through 12. And while you're doing that, you're saving for college.
Yes.
So whatever percentage is the difference that you're paying will go into an education savings account. And then when they graduate, all that money is waiting on them for college. So that's President Edwards.
Let's vote for her.
Yeah. Jacqueline or Jen?
I can go ahead. I'm kind of a big, let's just, if we're going to change it, let's go big, like go big or go home. We are going to we're going to wipe out the industrial revolution outdated model with the homogeneous grouping of all the 10-year-olds in one room. And we're going to go back to more of like a one-room schoolhouse. And at least for part of the day where the big kids and the little kids are together and the little kids inspire the bigger kids with their love of learning and their youth and their curiosity. And then the big kids can pour in to the little kids in reading and the skills. And also just thinking about like when you've got the group of 12-year-olds and you've got the one 12-year-old who can't read as well or who can't do math as well, they feel like they stick out like a sore thumb, but they're just growing at their own level. So like when you change up the groupings, it makes that less obvious and it helps them to say, well, they have something they can bring to the world too, because they're an amazing artist or they're really good at computers or they have something that they can share and give. So since it's only for one day, I can just make that proclamation and then everybody else can figure out all the details because I have no idea how that would look or work, but that would be what I would do.
That's the beauty of being president, right? They never really know what they're doing. They have a team of people that, depending on how they pick them, sometimes know what they're doing. So hopefully we would have an amazing Secretary of Education that could get that pulled off for you, President McDonald.
I appreciate that.
All right, President Miller, what we got?
A little bit in relation to that, I think that, and I don't know if it would so much be as far as a government sweep, as much as a cultural sweep about how to nurture our kids in different areas of intelligence. There's several books out there that have been written about the different ways that we're smart. And they talk about, being nature smart or being body smart as in athletic, or being people smart or number smart, word smart, emotional smart. And I think that if there was a way that we could let our kids know, right now the standard is generally word and number smart. And if you're not word, number, or people smart, I guess, there's kind of not a lot of areas where you can dive in and that you're allowed to work on those different specific intelligences. And I just wish culturally that we were able to say, you know what, he's 8 and he could live on his own in the woods. That's pretty amazing. And let's get him in more education on that. Let's do that. So I just wish culturally that we recognize more areas of intelligence and celebrated that and equipped and resourced people for that.
I love it. That's what I'm talking about. So next question. What's one thing you never knew until you had your own child in school that you wish someone had told you?
I'll start this one. And this is something I still to this day always say, if I could talk to any moms, because I have done so many different types of education, that you have the right as a mother, and you are equipped, or you can become equipped. If you are willing to make the hard choices that you believe you're passionate about for your kids, if you're willing to surrender lifestyle, if you're willing to move, if you're willing to stay home and if you feel, oh, I need to homeschool, but I can't homeschool because I can't afford it. Well, you can. There's just some other decisions that have to be made. And so I just wish everybody just knew you can do it. You can do it. You might just have to think outside the box. And I cannot believe, and this is what I love EdChoice about, I cannot believe the resources that are there that people do not know about. Most high school programs, I shouldn't say most, many high school programs, you can graduate with an associate's degree for free. They will pay for all the books. There are so much information out there. And I believe that EdChoice is a great option for helping you guys find that. But sitting down with your counselors, if you're in a public school system or even a charter school or private, I suppose, they can tell you. I tell people, oh, did you know that my daughter is getting her cosmetology license for free in high school? It's a $20,000 a year program, and nobody knows about it. So there are resources. You can do it. And most often there's resources there. You just have to find them.
Make sure you guys check out online or at their table their literature called The ABCs of Choice. It breaks down by state what programs are available in your state that you may not be aware of. Also, too, it gives you a vehicle to write to them and say, hey, we want education savings accounts in our state. Who's my legislator? Or, figure out who your legislator is and hound at them. So that is just one of the very valuable pieces of information that EdChoice has out there. But back to the question, for me, what I wish somebody had told me was kind of piggyback off of what you said, Jacqueline. When your child is ready to go to school, they're ready to go to school. And most states have hidden programs for 4-year-olds that are on the verge of being 5 that we know are emotionally intelligent enough and physically capable to sit in a classroom. So both my son and daughter did what Indiana calls a kindergarten readiness test. And if they pass the kindergarten readiness test, they receive a letter that will allow them to attend that district school. So for us, our kids both go to a public charter. So it's a charter school that's backed by the mayor's office in our state. And so the district that it's backed by is who I had them test with. Our son passed his test at 99%. Our daughter passed her test at 98%. And she'll be 5 November 2nd. For our son, there was a law that had been passed where you had to be 5 by a hard August 1st. No parents knew about it. The districts didn't even know about it. So they were scrambling, trying to figure out what to do with these almost 5-year-olds, because the deadline used to be the end of August, within a matter of weeks before school started. And so we found out about the kindergarten readiness test because of that, because his birthday is August 11th. I'm not holding him back an entire year over 10 days. Somebody is getting ready to do something. And moms, isn't that 9 times out of 10 what ends up happening? You get to your wits' end, or something happens that you weren't aware of, and you're like, okay, somebody's going to fix this, and they're going to fix it right now. So for us, that vehicle was that test. Then the legislators realized how much they had screwed up and went back and fixed the law. So the next year, it was the end of August. And then the next 2 years, so this was a 3-year correction. So the following school year, the end of August, you had to be 5. The year after that, the end of September, which is this year. Next year, it's the end of October that they can be 5 by, for them trying to make up for the screw up. But that's something I wish somebody had told me, was that there are ways around some of the red tape that you face.
And I'm going to segue off that. I think for me, I didn't know how much I was going to have to advocate for my kid, because I think we all as parents want to trust the school systems that house our child for how many hours a day. And I didn't know how many times I would have to show up in my flight attendant uniform off a plane to come up to the school and say, what is going on? Because they're kids. They're already at the mercies of the adult. So he was like, Mom, I just didn't know what to do. I'm like, well, I will come up there and fix it because XYZ. And my parents did it, but I didn't really understand when we saw them come up, because either you were in trouble or
That's right.
something happened that they didn't like. But I didn't see the behind the scenes of those conversations that were happening. Like, sometimes teachers are on the bad end of the stick. And I've had that experience with my son where he needed help and he felt that he was put down because he was asking, or he would see examples of interactions and he just was not, there was no connection. So I think for me, I wish someone had told me, you could have wrote out this script that you're going to need to use 20 years from now, 12 years from now, to go into these schools and advocate for your child, because they need us. We can't just let the school just run amok, just like with this law, you challenged it. So we have to go into these schools and challenge the system that is housing and teaching our kids. So that would be my, what did you say, girl?
Sure.
Yes, that word.
Jen, what you got?
Oh, I think mine's a little bit more practical. I just remember sitting at a MOPS meeting when I had a 3-year-old or something, and one of our wise speakers was talking about how it doesn't have to be like a birthday or or the first day of school to start something new. Like you can, you're 3.5 now, or you're 3 years and 5 weeks old now. You get to do XYZ.
Hang on, Jim. We got tech in the back trying to fix your sound, because
Okay.
we can hear you, but I'm not sure if the moms further back are hearing you, so they're working on boosting your volume. This is why it pays to have a staff member on your panel.
Love it.
This is the fun of live, right? Are you guys enjoying yourself so far? Are you writing down your questions, more importantly? Because in a few minutes, it's going to be your turn with the questions. So back to you, Jen.
Okay. Just that you don't have to wait for the big milestone to start something new. If something's not working, you have permission to change it that afternoon, or take a few days and make a plan, and the next Monday change it, or just, you don't have to sit if something's not working. Write an email to the teacher and figure out how to get through something, or just work with your kid. But yeah, just pivoting is okay.
So Jen was sharing that what she wish she'd known or what she would share is that you don't have to wait for a milestone to make a change. If you see an issue, address it then. Write to your principal, write to the teacher, do what you need to do to pivot, to find a solution to what's going on. So that's just summarizing if you can get her in the back. So next question. This one should be fun. As a mom, what's one thing you hear said by the media, government, education experts, what have you, that grinds your gears every time you hear it? For me, the biggest one is that we don't know how to handle education, or that we don't know how to make the best selections for our kids. Like I shared a little bit earlier, irks me more than when an official or an expert tries to say that they know what to do for our kiddos better than we do, because nobody knows their children better than their parents. I don't care how many letters you have behind your name. If you didn't birth them, you don't know them to the core of who they are. And even as parents, as moms, correct me if I'm wrong, ladies, there are times we don't know them as well as we think that we do. And they shock us. So if you're in the house with me and we share DNA, Lord knows we carried you for 10 long months and you shocked me. What in creation makes these experts think that my kids aren't going to shock them? So that's the one thing that I hear repeatedly that just burns me every time, is when somebody's trying to take the choice out of the parents' hands, or that parents don't know what to do with options, etc.
I can kind of speak back to the another question that you had asked, just that different kids learn at different levels. They learn, they do have different passions. We were all created very differently for different purposes. And there is value in, especially the way the public system has set up the standards. There's so much value in that. And I understand why they were put in place. But sometimes that's not the path for each individual child. And I think just the ability to say that, well, I'll speak as, I'll put on my homeschool hat for a second. It's a classic, oh, do your kids get socialized, right? I don't know why people are still asking that question, but they are. Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
you put
like,
them
we've
in a
been asking
tent
this question
and
for
they
50
just are
years.
isolated for 8 years.
I am not kidding. And this sweet girl, she was probably 18. I don't know. She was, I was getting my nails done, and she found out that I homeschooled. And I am not kidding. When she asked me, she said, well, can they speak? Like, no, they cannot. What? I prefer them to remain silent their entire life.
We do sign language.
We can speak sign language in 18 countries.
Oh my goodness.
18 languages. Anyway, no, but just that there's different ways we learn. And just because it's not done one way, it's not wrong. And it doesn't all have to be done one way. So I won't belabor the point. I think you get what I'm saying.
What works for you works for you.
And for each individual child. Because I have a lot, and they all learn very different. I have 2 that do excellent online, and they're super responsible, and they make their plan in the morning. And I have a 12-year-old son that can't put 2 socks on. So getting him to do 2 assignments in a row is just bad for the whole thing. I'm not kidding. The kid walks around with 1 sock. I don't understand how this happens. And it's not because he can't find it, because I'm the only woman in the entire world that has no mismatched socks in her house. I promise. I'm just kidding.
It's temperature.
No, we have a bucket. We have the big, huge bucket, this big full of empty socks. I don't even
I'm
imagine
coming to your house to get the
Right.
secret.
No. But he literally forgets halfway through putting on socks, and he'll walk around all day with 1 sock.
Wow.
Not your son.
No, my son leaves socks in the couch. Like, takes them off and he can't
In
find them.
them, under them,
Mhm.
beside them,
Yeah.
everywhere but on the feet or in
Right.
the dirty clothes.
In answer to your question, CJ, I feel like they think that we can't say no. I think because they believe that they are the be all end all, that we're not going to have pushback. And I think because so many of us aren't very educated on the school system because we trust them so much, they think we're not going to say no. And all three of us are going to be like, no, that's not going to work. And I have said no throughout the 7 years Ian has been in school. No, that's not going to work for him because I know how he learns. I know that this is what he needs. So listen to me, and together, as the parent and you're the educator, let's come up with a plan that works for him. And that has worked out wonderfully. So for me, I really believe they think that we just will not say no and we'll just let you just run amok and just take him. But no.
And I'm kind of
There
going
we
off.
go. Yay! Loud and proud. We can all hear you now.
Yay! Awesome tech people. You're the best. I think it's kind of what CJ was saying, but it's not system-wide solutions. Like, I hate when anyone says, like, this is how we're going to fix education, because I feel like it's more at the small levels, at the individual classrooms even, and you can't say that one solution is going to work everywhere. I just immediately, if anyone says, well, this is the thing that's going to fix it, well, you're probably not right. I mean, it's probably going to fix it somewhere, but not everywhere.
That's great.
Okay, final question before Q&A panel. All right, drum roll. What is your number one piece of advice for parents when it comes to selecting schools for their kids?
Well, I'll go. I believe open communication is really good between parent and child. For me, I didn't have that option. I just went wherever my parents sent me because they never asked my input on, like, what do you think about this learning style? What do you think about that? And after I went to an Ed Choice conference with CJ and Emery I think it was last,
2019.
yeah, we went. I actually sat down with Ian and asked him, like, how do you feel about how you're learning right now? What do you think you need? And it actually was a really great conversation. And I remember I took that into a meeting with administrators when they were asking about, he's really struggling. So what can we do? And I brought that same conversation up, and it actually really helped. Last year wasn't so good because online is just not for him, but he's back in school now in 7th grade and he's doing fantastic. And I know it's because of the plan that we put in place for him 2 years ago that has followed him to this point. So my advice honestly would be to sit down and talk with your kids because they understand. They're the ones experiencing the school system. The school system is not like how we were, because he came home with division the other day and I have no idea what those boxes are. So ask them.
Preach.
Because they understand and they're experiencing the school system. So ask them how they feel about what's going on, and I'm sure you'll get some really great feedback to help them along the way in their school, journey.
Jen?
Well, mine's almost similar, only I'm going to say I think as parents, we all are incredibly knowledgeable. We're our children's first teacher. You teach them how to tie their shoes and how to eat and pee and poop in the potty. And you tell your kids a lot of things. And you don't have to have a master's in education to be a good teacher to your kids. And so that includes school choice, that includes what they're doing. But you have a PhD in your child. You spent that many hours with them, and you have that ability just to know them, and that's important. And don't let anything discount that. I think there's a beautiful set of tools and skills that classroom teachers have, and you don't want to forget that, because those are really good too. But yeah, you know your children, and that's a good thing.
Jacqueline?
I think I would say don't be afraid to try or change. If
Amen.
you want to try homeschooling and you're 2 months in and you hate it, I promise your public school will let you re-enroll your child.
Any school.
And the way the school system is designed, it's okay if they miss 6 months. They'll learn the same thing again in 2 to 3 years in different ways, and that's okay. And if you want to try going to school and they don't like it, don't be afraid to pull them out. You can pull them out for a couple months and then put them back. You have so many more choices than you know. So don't be afraid to change, and don't be afraid to try.
My advice is is a little more general, but it piggybacks off of you. Parents have power. Don't underestimate that. There is nothing more powerful than a group of moms standing at the state legislature steps for or against any given thing. There is nothing more powerful than when we stand up and testify for or against a bill, for or against a policy your school or the district is trying to pass. There is power in parents. There's power in moms. So get your MOPS group together. Get your PTA. If there isn't a PTA, start one. Whatever you need to do to make change where you are. And if you can't make the change where you are, then to Jacqueline's point, you need to change to somewhere where you're being served because there's power in parenting, there's power in moms. And when we organize, especially women, there's nothing that we can't do. And I think the power of parents, the power of moms is underestimated until we have to show up and show them, who we are and what we need, what we stand for. Um,
I just had one
Go
little
ahead.
quick point, and I wouldn't be me if I didn't say this.
That's right.
Ladies, honestly, take inventory of your children's mental health as well as they go through their journey. Because I'm very big in this sector right now, I realize how important that is. Because if they don't have great mental health, they're not going to thrive in whatever school choice you've chosen for them. So definitely take inventory of your children's mental health as they traverse this educational system because they all differ. And you got to find out where they thrive and just take inventory. It's really important. So I just had to add that in there.
That also piggybacks with your advice, though. As you're talking to them, if you're hearing about bullying, if you're hearing about cyberbullying, if you're hearing about any issues that they're having, and take it to the teacher, take it to the principal, and nothing happens, then you have to make the best choice for them. And if that's move them, move them. Sometimes it's just to a different class, maybe to a different school type, different district. Pull them and teach them at home, whatever you need to do. So I think that goes hand in hand
definitely.
with your advice because as we check in with them, we know how to address things.
Most definitely.
So with that, we are now going to do Q&A. So we'll be able to take 2 or 3 questions from the floor, and panel will one of us or 2 of us can answer the questions. Anybody got a question? I see 2 hands. Yay!
So how do you navigate school choices when it comes to bullying and whether or not the child tells you about it, and also socialization?
For me, bullying is real. When I was in middle school, I was bullied to the point of where I ended up having my face slashed open 17 times. And after that, my mom had to, and this was at a Catholic school, and the nun suspended both of us and said it takes 2 to fight. So my mom took it to the street and filed charges against the girl who slashed my face open. And this wasn't the course of action she wanted to take, but it was the course of action she had to take to protect her child. So it was a horrific experience. We had to go to the courthouse and I had to testify, I had to talk to detectives, I had to go see a plastic surgeon, etc. By the end of that process, I was suicidal to the point of where she sent me to Texas for 2 months to be with family so that I could escape Indiana for a while. And it's the grace of God that not only my face was whole by the end of this, but I was restored and, those thoughts were put away. But saying all that to say, she didn't wait for anybody to tell her what to do. She did what she thought was best. And my mom was not a room mom. My mom was not a MOPS member. My mom worked. So if Deborah took off work, it was a big deal. Okay. So fast forward to me as a mom, I'm very active from preschool. Well, actually from the 2-year-old room to present. They know me. They know who I am. They know how we're raising our children. I'm a room mom. I go on field trips. I'll take off work in a second. One of the things I learned through MOPS is I am a mom that works. I am not a working mom. There is nothing that comes before my husband and my children. So please know that before you hire me, because I'm gone. If somebody is bleeding, something is broken, somebody being bullied, and I need to go handle business, I'm gone. So recently in July, I went back to work full time for the first time in a year and a half. And I work for the school that my older two attend. So I'm really in the building. A, because my skill set matches the open position, but B, because it's important to me to know what's going on. So the more you know the teacher, the more the teacher knows you, the more administration, the school board, and whoever else it is needs to know you knows you. Your kid is no longer a number. So if you see any kind of issue, emotionally, mental health wise, physically, bullying, test scores lacking, whatever it is, they're gonna go, oh, Miss Edwards, good to see you. You know what? How can we help you today? Is it a field trip we missed or something? No, I'm here to talk to you about Emory being bullied. And so that's long way of saying make your presence known and make sure everybody from the janitor to the head of school and your school board president, whoever it is that's in your decision making wheelhouse, knows who you are. And again, don't be scared to get your moms together and make your presence known if you have to, because I guarantee you, your child is not the only one being bullied or harassed or feeling uncomfortable in the classroom by whoever the other student is. Also, too, something we know as Christians is we have to show grace. And we don't always know what environment that other child is coming from. So the young lady I got into it with, her mom had gone back to prison for the third time. Her grandmother was raising her and her three sisters. And so she had a challenging upbringing as well. Now, that doesn't justify her actions. However, you have to understand where the child that's doing the bullying, the environment they're coming from as well. Because sometimes it's just, send an extra cookie, high five little Johnny when you see him, and you may see a behavior change in the bully because you took the time to understand them as well. So that's my advice. Did either of you have anything?
I'll add my take. My son had a little bit of bullying a few years back, but I would say empower your child as well. If stuff's not happening, hey, do you want to start taking some karate classes? I'm just saying, just empower
Just
them.
saying.
I'm not saying we're choosing violence, but empower your children, because we're not there to see them from 8 until 2. So empower them, especially after school, so they can feel that. But if you decide to also switch them from schools, children are very adaptable. We don't give them enough credit. They will make new friends. My son misses all his friends from 3rd grade until 6th grade, misses them terribly. But now he's like, Mom, guess what? I was like, what's up, Ian? I'm popular. I was like, really? He was like, everyone's in my locker. I'm like, oh, because now they have lockers in 7th grade now. So he's really gelling it, because we are choosing the right option for them. But like I said, they will adapt. It's going to suck. And with all of us, we feel the pain of losing something, but eventually it no longer hurts as much. So definitely let them, join a few classes and, advocate for themselves, but definitely empower them is what I would say, and that they're adaptable. So they'll be fine.
Confidence is key. Up here in the front.
I was curious to hear more for those of you that you knew your child needed a different option than what a standard your district public school was willing to offer them. How did you start, and what were your decisions in that process to find that right fit? what your children thrived for?
Jen, do you want to start with that? I feel like you'd be great to answer that question.
I think ours is more the homeschool, just a family decision. We are in an amazing school district, and we love being in a district where everybody values education, because that's our friend group around us and neighbors. So I don't know that we've necessarily navigated it to fit her question.
I think for us, a perfect example is my son, who's in the charter school that goes 2 days a week. They, just like most schools last year, went full time online, and like Ian, he just turned into a class clown. He was very distracting. And I don't know that Ian was like that, but he was not learning at all. And he was preventing other children from learning. So we just pulled him. And I said, you know what? I don't really feel like many people are going to learn a lot this semester anyway. So we're going to work on spelling and reading. And that's all we did. And so that's why we did that. And again, you have the right to teach your child whatever you want at that time. But as far as discovering other options, I feel like research, ask the questions.
Amen.
Again, meet with the school counselors. That's how I found out about all of these programs for our high schoolers. Ask other communities. There's I feel like many homeschool community moms have done a lot of that research because they're already looking at that alternative mindset. So they may have a little bit more, call a homeschool community, even if you don't want to join them, and say, do you know about other options in the area? The Department of Education. I've not done that, but I feel like that would be a very good place to
It's
start.
very full of resources.
EdChoice has tons of resources. I promise you, there is so much out there, more out there than you know. Everything from, I say, homeschooling. There's the university models. There's part-time. You can put your kid in a public school system in many states for, you know what? I don't like teaching math, so I'm going to send my kid to school for math and for English, and I'm going to teach them everything else at home. And you can send your kid to many states have a law where you can send them just for the public sports. My husband was the first child in Colorado when they passed the law to play public high school sports as a full-time homeschooler. And now anyone in Colorado can do that. And his parents fought at the Capitol building to make that happen.
That's right.
He's 42 now. So he's no longer playing high school public sports. But all four of their children, they homeschooled all of their kids, K through 12, and all four of their children went on to play Division I sports. So there are so many ways to combine. You just have to ask.
A practical thing to do is look at some parent groups. Start with Facebook, look on Instagram, find groups that you have questions about homeschooling. If you have questions about the combined program, if you want to know more about Magnet, Montessori, charter, whatever private, and there's all different kinds of private models, not just Lutheran and Catholic. There's a lot of different private models out there. If you want to join a collaborative, get a couple parents together and you all hire somebody to tutor. There's all kinds of models out there. So when it comes to research, look to what you're curious about. Search about what you have questions about. Find groups that are centered around those topics because they're out there. There is a group for everything you can possibly think of on the internet. And this is going to sound silly. Get on YouTube. You want to learn more about what homeschooling is about? Get on YouTube. If you want to know what's a traditional school model, what is a Montessori model, what is a charter school model, get on YouTube. I guarantee you, lots of schools now have videos out on YouTube that talk about what they're about. They have channels. Some have student content on them. Some have, promotional content, etc. But another practical thing is, and this is going to sound silly, but we don't think about it when we're in the trenches, ask your friends. Ask your friends. And a challenging thing to do is ask that mom that drives you insane. The mom with the perfect hair and the put together makeup, and she knows the best dry shampoo on the market in the drop off line. Ask her, where do your other kids go? Because what you'll find is different things work for different kids. And I know families that have 2 or 3 kids, and each of them are at a different school, or each of them are following a different model. So we'll ask our girlfriends about, where'd you get that lipstick, or where'd those shoes from, but we don't ask about education. And as we get older, unlike when we were in adolescence, our friends do kind of know what they're talking about. Unlike when we were asking about, silly things in middle school, peer to peer, they don't always know what they're talking about when they're young. But as we get older, we tend to know a little bit more about what we're talking about. So, it's a simple thing, but, ask your friends. And if it's a school in your area, go visit. Even with COVID protocol, a lot of schools are still allowing new families to come and interview them. You may not get a full school tour, but as somebody that works for a school, if a parent calls and wants to come to the school to hear what we're about because they're thinking about sending their kid up there, you better believe they're going to find an administrator and or teacher to be able to come up to the front and talk to you, even if you can't go all the way in the building. So interview the heck out of them, because I trust and believe. As soon as your kid gets in trouble or is having any kind of issue, they're going to be calling you to come be with them or come get them, or whatever. So do that on the other end. Before we selected our kid's school, we interviewed and toured 5 different schools and met with administration and the teacher that would be teaching them before we sent them there. So even though our kids attend a public charter school, it's an innovation school, so it's place-based learning. So students get to ask questions and investigate the answer based on educational principles. And so for our son, that was very, very important for him to get to be able to be hands-on. And so they don't just learn about the earth. They go outside and they dig it up. Right now, the kindergartners have started their own composting totes in their classroom because it's hands-on learning. So there is a learning model out there that will fit your child's needs. I promise. One last question, or any other questions? Oh, we got a hand.
Thank you, ladies. This has been amazing. So this is maybe slightly two-part, but so your child is in public school. We'll just start there with the traditional choice that most people opt for. And you disagree with the teacher, you express a concern, and that teacher either brushes you off or disregards or says you're wrong, what have you. So my first piece of that question is, how do you respectfully go over that teacher's head or get an additional question answered and bring that concern up? Okay, so that's
You
one
asked the
piece.
right group.
Okay. So that's one piece. The other piece is, how far up the ladder do you go before you pull the plug and say it's time to switch?
The Supreme Court.
I'll just give my experience. Ian was not doing very well with this one teacher. I would be like, Ian, why didn't you ask? Well, Mom, I saw her ask, someone else ask her, and she told him, no, I will not answer your question. So he wouldn't ask questions. And he was struggling. And I told her, every time I do the beginning of school, I say, email me if something happens because I can't be here all the time. And they would wait until the last minute to let me know that he's failing. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me ahead of time? So eventually I contacted the principal and I was like, I need to have a meeting with you, the vice principal, the psychologist at the school, the teacher. And I really didn't care if that was over her head or not, because you guys are running the school. And then it came to a point where she emailed me. She was like, I just don't know what to do with him. And I was like, I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Why are you teaching
Exactly.
here? And I was very offended. So I have been one of those parents that has been like, I need all of you who run this building to be in the meeting. And she was quiet as a mouse in there. But this is, as we were talking about, advocating for your kids. Like, nobody told me I would have to be in the office with everybody that runs the place. But you have to, because they'll just let your kid just run through and they've learned nothing. And then you're here dealing with all these F's and D's and you're wondering, how come I didn't know about this? Even though I've asked you how many times, send me an update, send me an update. Oh, I'll send it to you. I never got it. So it may seem like you're doing I think we're all just trying to be nice. But as it pertains to our children, no, you're here for a reason and you need to do your job. So I'm holding you accountable and I will go over your head. And if not, I will contact Mayor, what's our mayor's name? I don't know his name, but contact everybody. Oh, yes, that triggered me. Sorry.
Just this is what this podcast is about, real parenting. And so that's why I said you asked the right group, because we're not going to give you the politically correct answer. We're going to give you what we did or what we know. And so to piggyback off of Ness is, I'm a private school product, K through 12. My first public school was my college. So I didn't know any different. But I grew up in Northeast Indiana. My husband, however, grew up in Southern Georgia. He's public school product. So we both had very different opinions about school. I also am biracial. My father's Caucasian, my mother's African American. My husband is straight up African American. And he's dark skinned. So we have different things we experienced in school. Not just because of where we grew up and not just because of our complexions, but also how we learn. So when we started having kids, we toured, like I said, and interviewed 5 different schools in all different models: Montessori, private, public, charter. And so when we selected the school he was at, we loved it. We had an amazing experience that first year. Then the pandemic hit. We pulled him from the school he was at to go to a private school because they were doing in-person learning. For a 6-year-old first grader, we didn't feel that online learning was going to work. And so we did what we thought was best, which was put him in a private school where I knew the district principal, the building principal, and 3 teachers for a decade through a Christian ministry called the Great Banquet. So I knew and had served for years with these women. So if we thought we could trust putting him anywhere, it was there. However, not 3 months in, did we face a lot of challenges, and had me not only questioning my son's ability to learn, but our parenting. Had he just been coddled at this other school, had he just been told he was great and maybe wasn't so great. So it came upon Thanksgiving. I had met with the teacher, the principal, volunteered. You guys, I told you how I am. They knew who I was, even in COVID, volunteering with a mask and gloves and everything else on. And it didn't make a hill of beans. So coming back from Thanksgiving, they announced that they were going virtual. So we made the decision that if we were going to have to send him back virtual, he was going back to his previous school. So mid-semester, first semester, I reached out to the head of school and I said, can Emery come back? And she said, he'd come back tomorrow. So we went and got his materials. We switched him. He did virtual for 2 months and then went back into the building. Saying all that to say, I don't care who you know. I don't care how visible you are. It may not matter. There is no nice when it comes to your kid. I don't give a flying fig Newton how that teacher feels about how many heads above her you have to climb to get the result. You do what you need to do as a mom, because the word says we are responsible for them until they come of age. So I would rather get on the other side and have to repent for not acting very Christ-like than to get on the other side and not make it to heaven because I didn't do what I was supposed to do for my child. So when I said, if you got to go to the Supreme Court and file a case, Brown versus the Board of Education is one of the most talked about cases in the history of education. That started with an educational issue. So whatever your last name is, it may be the Edwards versus the Board of Education, if it has to be, because we're willing to be the example and be the martyr or whatever we need to be so that not only our kid, but all families benefit. So if you have to fight, fight.
especially when you don't see change happening. It's time to go. Like, don't try to fit this into this small hole. It's not going to work. It just go with, because we moms, we have that gut feeling. And a lot of times we don't trust it because we're questioning it. And I've been learning as I grow older, that first feeling, run with it.
So thank you, ladies, for joining us. We are running a little behind because we started a little late, trying to give you some grace to finding our room. So thank you for hunting
Yes, thank
us
you.
down. I want to give a quick special thank you to my guests for my very first podcast, Jacqueline, Nas, and Jennifer, virtually. Thank you for joining us. And I just wanted to recognize again our title sponsor for this episode, Ed Choice. Again, you can find them at booth 207 and online at edchoice.org. And then I wanted to just recognize a couple of people that made today possible, companies that made today possible. So first, Inspire Design Group, who is my production, and some of the graphics that you see have been done by Backpack Design and Marketing Studio. The fabulous music that you're hearing is a original piece created by Be Heat Production. And the pictures of myself, Lord, that was terrible to have to do.
Was
But they
not.
turned out fabulously.
They did.
Thanks to the eye at J Don Photography. My fabulous jewelry that I'm wearing today is brought to you by my spiritual mom with Promises Handmade Jewelry. And two companies from home that got me ready to drive down here are Pink Monkey Aesthetics and Wellness Salon and Sheer Canvas Beauty. So with that, we will play the podcast outro, and you are free to chat for a second with us and get ready for the first main stage gathering of MomCon at 6. So
Right.
thanks again for coming.
Thank you for listening to my mom's broadcast. Whoop, whoop. Thank you for listening to my mom's broadcast. Whoop, whoop.
This has been a Be Heat production. Thank you for listening, and please tune in again.